Yeah, I think that what I'm looking at is when I mentioned about AI and how it's impacting people is that we need more leadership to understand the gap. There's going to be a huge gap of people that are going to need to be upskilled. What does that look like? And how do you want to impact that? So in terms of leadership, if you have an expertise that might be dwindling, how do you plan to upskill the people that you have? And how are you just telling someone that's a truck driver that you need to get a job in AI is not enough.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Regan, and today's guest is Felecia Ward, a Fortune 100 marketing communication strategist, executive leadership coach, and LinkedIn top voice for 2024 with over 35 years of experience advising C-level executives, dignitaries, and politicians. Felecia has built a career empowering leaders to communicate with purpose, lead with clarity, and step into authentic thought leadership. As founder of Felecia Ward Marketing, she helps executives, entrepreneurs, and agencies elevate their visibility, credibility, and authority through strategic positioning, science-based coaching, and purpose-driven messaging. Her work champions diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging while equipping leaders to amplify their impact and expand their global reach. It's a pleasure for me to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Felecia.
Hi, thank you so much, Rajan. I so appreciate you having me today. Love talking with other coaches and people that are interested in coaching.
It's a pleasure for us to have you on. And I wanted to ask you, let's go back in time for a little bit. Wanted to understand, what inspired you to become a coach and have this coaching business?
Well, I started my career initially with advertising agencies and PR. So I started out on the agency side and helping craft messaging, curating what the vision and what the visuals are going to look like for campaigns and advertising. And in doing that, I would have to help a lot of CEOs in terms of crisis. So I became adept at crisis management. So I went and started out, and I tell people I started out as an intern, worked my way up to a junior account executive, worked on, market research in a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and then moved on to a senior account person and worked my way up finally to vice president of client services at an agency. And when I was at that level, you're going to meetings with CEOs to talk about what is their positioning, what are they going to be doing moving forward. So the creative side, the messaging side, the positioning, I was very used to that. What happened was when the crisis started to happen with mayors, governors, CEOs, they all have something in common. And then that is when there is a crisis, they're no longer in control. So if I got sent to a property or to an entity, it's because whatever they're doing is not working. So it's hi, very nice to meet you, but I'm here because CNN is outside. So I had to help them kind of reposition and unlearn all the different leadership things that they had learned in school. So they're posturing, they're positioning, they're making themselves look very authoritarian, and they have all this great credibility. But when there's a major crisis going on, you have to connect with your audience. I call it coming out of the tower of power. You're going to have to come down, and typically when there's great news, we're preparing a CEO to give great news and take credit for everything. When there's bad news, they send someone like me to be the spokesperson for the bad news and provide all the details, and then leave me there to do the media avail to all the press that ask all the details. So in that moment, when I'm in a crisis with someone, you get to know CEOs very well, and you get to understand the shoes that they're actually in, and they need to be able to communicate and be authentic with someone, because all during the day, they're posturing. They're having to cloak who they truly are, what they feel about things, because their job is to get it done. So when you're helping leadership in terms of coaching, what I found is that after a crisis would be over, I would have people reach out to me to ask me my opinion on things, that some things had to do with business, some things had to do with the next step in their lives. And what you find is that when I started out my career, a lot of CEOs were CEOs for 10 or 15 years. Now the average CEO is there like maybe 7 years. And when it comes to leadership, there's a huge gap between people that are middle managers and how to get into the C-level space. So I made that my niche. How, and the reason, the passion that I have about being a coach is that I was laid off 4 times in my career and had to pivot 4 different times and take all the knowledge and expertise that I had and go into a space of being uncomfortable, interviewing with people that are younger, interviewing with people that had different types of experience. And what you start to learn is that you're just going with the flow. You're going with the flow and you're worried, and it makes you very uncomfortable. And you start wondering about your own worth. And what I found was that when I got a mentor that was able to coach me and say, you need to invest in a coach so that you will start to feel empowered by what you already have accomplished. So you really, in the terms of corporate America, I became somewhat of a survivor. That I've survived corporate, I've survived agencies, I've survived downturns, mergers, acquisitions. I personally experienced those things. So when I'm dealing and talking with leaders, I'm telling them from a perspective of a personal perspective, but I also have that corporate experience that I was in those war rooms and I was helping build brand equity for a company. I was helping position people so that they would have fantastic PR of what they were doing. I know I was working on like major projects for a lot of big companies, but behind the scenes, people don't know how much goes into hiding behind the gates, the negative things that are happening. And that's where coaches come in. It's having the difficult conversations and being able to talk about, how are you doing? No one ever asks people in leadership, how are they doing? And what I found is that you have to have advocacy. So one of the things I really promote is having advocacy. Every person that's in, whether they are an entry level person into corporate and this is their first job, they're moving on, they become an assistant manager, a manager, and as they grow up, they go further and grow. There's different transitions that take place in your personal life, transitions that take place in your career life, and then what are you going to be doing post whatever that career is? And the average person is now going through 12 transitions within a couple of years. So one of the things that really attracted me to becoming a certified navigation transitions intelligence coach is those different transitions that today we're trying to normalize, that you're never going to get back on track once you've been laid off, once someone in your family has died, you've experienced, whatever the upheaval is. There are now frameworks to help you to help incorporate those things and be cognizant of the fact that you don't just touch upon your career. You also have to touch on your personal life. You also have to talk about your own personal mindset, your physical health, your mental health. Combining all those things, it all starts out with neuroscience. What's going on in your brain? How are you actually feeling and how are you coping? And now I think we're becoming more evolved humans where we're utilizing much better coping skills. And when you can provide people with frameworks and say, first of all, let's take an opportunity. And there's a tool that you use as a navigation coach called, the awe retreat, right? An awe is when you're saying, okay, I just got laid off from this horrible job. Okay. So you're devastated and you're sad, but at the same time, there's an opportunity that exists there because you're no longer in a toxic workspace. Your headspace is going to get better. And you have to think about, what do you want to do next? Or before, most people are just on automatic pilot. So now you actually look at the opportunity and then say, hey, what would you like to do if you could do it? And that's where you see people's eyes go, you know what? I always wanted to get into photography. As a navigation coach, that's called a glimmer. You just saw a little preview of something that ignited within you that you realize that you can transition to something else. And that takes place whether you've experienced a loss or you've experienced a win. Let's look at it from all the different perspectives and utilize frameworks to help people basically be more balanced and seek the clarity and take the time to map out, what is it that you really want to do? Let's start with the North Star where you really are looking to go, and let's build around that. And then guess what? everything falls into place when you prioritize things. So, if you're a parent and you start having children, your children become your North Star. Everything else starts to fall into place. Well, the same thing happens within the career transitions that people have. People have car accidents, things that happen where if you're not helping to incorporate that as part of your life, I think up to this point, people try to compartmentalize things and people normalize that I got to get back on track. I got to get back to where I was. Well, that just sets people up for failure. It sets people up for a very long haul. And one of the things that I really love about coaching is that everyone's an onion. And you just have to peel back the layers and figure out what's gold within your onion because you actually have it within you. And we have to really start normalizing in the coaching industry and within corporate America that people are going to have multiple careers. And one of the things that we talk about in transition coaching is that you could be a person who all of a sudden has been married 15 years. Now you're having problems in your marriage. Your children are about to graduate. You're about to become an empty nester and you just got laid off for your job. That's 3 transitions and it's only Tuesday. Okay. So most people retreat, think it's only happening to them and they don't seek the help for it. They're just thinking that I'm going through a bad time and if I can just get past this, well, guess what? Don't go so fast to try to get past it. Work through it and figure out how you can look at the opportunities that exist in this new place that you're in, because the learning comes from not being able to do anything. You're parked here for a reason, so you might as well take advantage of it and create that opportunity for yourself to seek that clarity. And then we have to redefine what happiness means to each person. And when I ask people what you want your legacy to be, that really helps provide a lot of clarity for people because I want to be a person that you're coaching. Most coaches are coaching the person that they were 3 people back. You're coaching yourself. You're providing the passion that we have. The purpose-driven passion is to help provide people the support that you did not receive when you were going through those circumstances. And being a coach and investing in a coach is providing strategic shortcuts to a person who really needs to hear the brass tacks of what's going to happen next. So people will just say a bunch of things to you. Oh, everything's going to be okay. Everything works out for a reason and all that kind. It's not helpful. Let's talk about what you could actually do. So you have the world banks and, the world is transitioning now into AI. So you have all of these people that are being forced to transition into digital money, forced to deal with AI, forced to not be able to talk to a person and deal with AI. It's an opportunity to learn about AI and learn how you're going to fit. How are you going to work with AI? And maybe the industry you're in is not going to be good for you, but maybe there's a better fit where you can actually utilize that. So those are some of the frameworks and the things that you talk about when you're talking about transitions. So that's how I kind of fell into the coaching space. And then, as I said, when I worked with people, what I found is that when it comes to leadership, no matter how young or how old, they all have some things that are in common. They all seek the greater good. They all want to represent a better workplace. They want to try to make a difference. And in doing that, whether a person is a celebrity, and I've worked with celebrities of Magic Johnson, I've worked with politicians, governors, mayors, they all have something that they want to do. There's a goal that they're trying to get to because they do want their legacy to be sustainability or to be diversity. So what I tell them, if that's your goal, what have you done thus far? And most of them haven't done anything because they're too busy implementing a plan. Right? So you're implementing these plans and these strategies, but how does that affect you as a person? So you have to at some point take a stand for yourself and how you want to be remembered. And I always tell people, my grandmother said, there's a reason that on your tombstone, you can only put beloved sister, beloved brother. You can only fit a couple of words. So when you're the Northeast Senior Vice President of it doesn't matter. No, as soon as you leave your position, someone else will be in that. So what is it that you'd like your legacy to be in your position? Or would you like to transition and start a business of your own? Would you like to start a foundation? Would you like to educate people? Would you like to advocate for people who can't advocate for yourselves? Notice anytime I talk about doing something purpose driven, it only has a couple of words, but those words are so meaningful to help connect to other people. And that's really what my passion is, to help people transition. So if they're in corporate and corporate was a toxic space for them and they're looking to transition and to become an entrepreneur, then let's do that. If you're a CEO and you're like, you know what, I like to start a foundation, or I want to go back to my corporate days back when I was in operations where I saw where all the loopholes were and all the potholes, and I want to go back and fix it, then let's start from now and start incorporating that in what you do. Start going to those spaces, start talking about your thought leadership. And I just think it's really important to have more servant leaders that are purpose driven. I want to generate more servant leaders that are going to get out of there and what I call get out of the tower of power. I call it that because when I worked in marketing and corporate offices, people come up with all these great, what do they call them? I can't think of the name, but there's all these different road maps that people have and the loops that they want people to go to. And they want this, the client journey to be what it is. Most of the people that come up with all that stuff, they're not dealing in reality of the customer. So what I did was I would invite CEOs, let's go out and go to Dunkin' Donuts, park from the outside and actually go in and see the hard seats that people have to sit on. Stand in the long lines and let's go through the client journey map that you guys have come up with, and talk to the people who actually are making the donuts, people that are serving the people that are eating the donuts, to find out. You have to connect with regular people. Politicians, when I deal with them, the reason people always say you gotta know before you talk to a crowd, what is the price of bread and milk? If you don't know the price of bread and milk and you're getting ready to steal with your constituents, they don't feel connected to you because you don't know their life. You have to know the life of your customer. You have to know who it is that you're targeting, and people sit in the tower and the smartest people in the room are telling them all the things that they need to do for this client journey. And you need to have this roadmap and that map. And what happens is you're getting further away from the people who actually are your customer. So you have to come out of the tower of power and you have to go down to the plant and just talk to the employees, what I call front-facing people, to tell you what the problems are. What are people saying? Because those people, you need to elicit feedback. And that feedback comes from the people that are on the front lines, that are front-facing. And if, as a leader, you should not only hire people that are smarter than you, you need to hire people that come from a diversity of different backgrounds, to have them have a seat at the table, to provide you with a different perspective so you can provide a more holistic solution to the problems that you're going to face. And then it actually helps them embolden and empower the people in the company because now they have a stake in everything. And I think in coaching, a lot of times people spend so much time just talking about how the leader feels. I want to connect the leader to themselves, what their purpose is, what their journey is, what their impact is going to be, and then talk to the actual people you're going to impact because they're going to provide you the best insight. I call those master classes. The master classes are not the people that have all the experience. The master classes are talking directly to the people you're going to impact, from change management, job layoffs, things of that nature, to productivity, and finding out why are we, the productivity part, the disconnect is the why. Why is this happening? So in coaching, finding out the reason is because John doesn't have a bus fare. He doesn't have a car. There's no babysitter. Let's talk about the reality. That's the personal connections that if you are a leader, you have to start understanding what those different barriers are. And if you're in leadership, you need to address them. And when you address them, guess what? People feel connected and people feel like you care. And people don't hear what you're saying until they know that you care. And that's a part of the coaching. So coaching is just not introspective. Coaching is it's interconnective. And so that interconnectivity starts with your brain and what it is that you bring to the table because you are in a position of leadership, but think about all the different people that are under your care. And that's the interconnection and the inclusion and the belonging that has to be there. And you have to be able to have that feedback, take that back, and then adopt that into your strategies and your policies. And then that makes for a much better experience with your workers, your teams, your stakeholders, your community. If you're in a community and people have just laid off a whole bunch of people, one of the proudest things that I worked on was the bankruptcy of London Fog. That's how old I am. When London Fog became bankrupt, one of the things that we talked about is they had these huge warehouses like how Amazon has it now. And instead of just laying off a bunch of people and saying, good luck, go with God, we created a space that all of the people could actually come and get job training, work on their resume, create a community amongst themselves, talk about what are potential careers that they could go into, provide them with job resumes, writing, and then help them and give them referrals so that they can try to get other jobs. Actually pick up the phone and call other industries, other people that were competitors to help your people get hired. That's one of the things you want to do. The other thing you want to be able to do is build that community so that people have a way to keep coming and getting up every day. Because people typically, when they get laid off, they go home and they sit in their pajamas. So if you have a place to actually get dressed and come to and network and find that positivity, they may not have a library and they still feel connected to their peers, their coworkers and colleagues, but they also have a better feel of the company that they work for. Okay. That creates awesome authority and credibility for the company to do something like that and to offer people like the free newspaper or whatever that they need in terms of services for a year to 2 years, because they know now the average person, it takes almost 2 years now for people to find a really good job. So it's unrealistic that after 4, 5, 6 months, people don't understand that in the unemployment office, after 6 months, you're no longer counted as unemployed. You're just no longer you're no longer in the data. So just imagine you're a person, but you're no longer counted. What does that say? So it says a whole lot as a company if you're a good corporate citizen and you provide the tools, the frameworks to show that you cared for the people that produced and were part of your family as an extension. Those are different things I have conversations with people in leadership about that they're just not even aware of. Why they're not aware of it? They've never been laid off. Okay. So not that many people have experienced you're going to be laid off in 2 years. That's one thing. But to come in and they tell you today's your last day, it can be devastating psychologically, physically, mentally. So if you're not in position to actually have experienced it for yourself, you need to be able to come out of the tower of power and go about to your employees and talk about what they've actually experienced, what they've actually gone through. And you need to be able to have those difficult conversations with leadership because they talk about the bottom line, the bottom line. Well, if you want the bottom line to be better, you have to go below the bottom line and humble yourself and find out what's going on below the surface. When you can actually connect to those problems, then you become more purpose-driven because you realize it's essential. Every major problem that you have, there's always an underlying reason that we don't discuss because we say it doesn't connect to profitability, but it actually does connect to profitability. And then I think one of the things that you have to do in coaching is to make that connection for them, provide the frameworks for them, and get them to see it's the bigger picture, but it's also the connectivity to others, and then how that will reflect upon you, and making sure that you are building the legacy for the next person. Because what you want to do is I want to, as I said, generate more transformative servant leadership. And if you get and dig down more into the servant leadership, that's where people find out what their purpose is, what their passion is, as opposed to just profitability all the time. There two things are not separate. You can actually be profitable and you can also be productive and be purpose driven. So that's one of the goals that I really seek in terms of being a coach.
Cool. And so many thoughts right now from all of that you shared, but we just went through topics. But I wanted to ask you and go back to your coaching business for the next, looking into the future for the next 1 to 3 years. Where are you headed? Do you have any specific business goals that you're working towards?
Yeah, I think that what I'm looking at is when I mentioned about AI and how it's impacting people, is that we need more leadership to understand the gap. There's going to be a huge gap of people that are going to need to be upskilled. What does that look like? And how do you want to impact that? So in terms of leadership, if you have an expertise that might be dwindling, how do you plan to upskill the people that you have? And how are you just telling someone that's a truck driver that you need to get a job in AI is not enough. Okay. You're telling me facts. People know facts, but we understand the reason that people don't take action is because they become overwhelmed and there's not really a roadmap that's given to them. You have to have people that have made the transition. You need to bolster those people and bring those people forward and say, in coaching, and let those people be highlighted and say, you know what? Hey, I used to be in this position, completely different from you, and now I'm in this position. How did that transformation take place? It took place through coaching, and that coaching becomes something that it's just not for the job in terms of how to do the job. It's the why do I need to do this? And then what is my purpose in doing it? And how is that going to impact other things? Those are the three things I really wanted to really push forward in coaching. Is that what I find is that I love working with, don't get me wrong, CEOs and people one-on-one, but I love doing small group coaching because then they build their own little communities. They build their own internal support system. And when you're not there, they're like, you can do it. Okay. And then when you have people get that glimmer and understand that, you know what, we can do this. When they graduate together, they still have that community. And then you're teaching one to many. And that, my strategic visibility leadership framework, I came up with it because it works in any industry. When a person is walking to the stage, okay, and they're one of the greats, they say coming to the stage is Academy Award winner. That Academy Award winner, that means they're great in acting. What's the highest award you can get? The Academy Award. Well, how is the Academy Award given? It's given by your peers. So you need to be in your industry. You need to be associated with whatever the highest level of compliance or organization within your industry so that your peers get to know you. Okay. They know your work. So the next level is they say, come to the stage as Academy Award winner. And then they say, hey, what did they win the award for? And how are they impacting people? Well, they have a course that they're teaching all over the world, one to many. So how are you giving your message out there? So webinars, podcasts, that messaging, instead of just talking to people in Milwaukee, you're now talking to people all over the world, and that maybe on a third world country, just on a little cell phone, you're giving that person hope, direction, and a roadmap and inspiring them that they can do something. So every person that's great, no matter what industry that they're in, like Tony Robbins, they're trying to do one to many. They've also all written a book. Only 10% of people have written books. So when you write it down, okay, talking is great, but documenting your process, documenting your journey, and being involved in writing it down is a huge milestone for everyone. So now that other people can actually take the time on their time to figure out how they're going to be able to do this and how you can inspire others. And then in terms of the visibility, you have to be your brand. I tell everyone, you are a walking brand. If I Google you, what comes up? And most of the time, nothing comes up because people don't think about that. So they nowadays you think of search engine optimization. Now you have to think about generative engine optimization. How are you being quoted and sourced in AI? So in terms of visibility, people need to understand people do business with people that they have heard of or other people are talking about you. So you have to have the credibility and the authority where other people, it's not enough for you to tell me, hey, I'm a professor at Harvard University. That's great. You just told me, but if I Google it, harvarduniversity.com comes up and there's your profile. There's my social proof that you teach at Harvard. So I coach people and let them know that you need to do all these different things. And they say, well, I'm already famous and I worked at Kellogg's and I did this and I did that. Well, you work under the moniker of a corporation. When you no longer work for that corporation and you start your own business or you start speaking or whatever it is that you do independently, you no longer have that moniker. What you have to do is go back and build your personal brand. So in coaching, I teach that you have to start building your own personal brand, meaning that the certifications that you have to be portable to your industry, not just portable to the company that you're in. Because a lot of people have worked and I've been laid off 4 times. I can tell you, no one thinks that when they walk into Google today, They think Google's going to be around for 100 years. Well, ask the people who used to work at Sprint and MCI and other companies. Tomorrow, a company could be gone. So get your certification in the industry that you're in so that you have your credibility. Join organizations that have compliance, backing for your industry so that shows that you're learning best practices and that you're constantly learning. You're an eternal learner, and then make sure that you are networking with your peers, that they know who you are and you're in some educational classes. And guess what? It's best networking you're going to do because everyone walks in and doesn't know anything about that subject and we're all about to learn together. So the group coaching and attending things like that, it's such an important thing. And then you can do the external things, going to join the Chamber of Commerce, be on social media, make sure that you're locally. These are all things that it sounds very elementary, but it's a big strategy as opposed to people saying, you know what? Well, I got my LLC. I have, 35 years of experience. I used to be a big attorney, and they get out there and it's crickets. 90% of my business is because people have all this expertise and no one's calling them. They're not booking. They're not making money. You know why? They're being out marketed by somebody who's saying, I'm $60 million in 30 days and sign up for my class and you can win $1 million. And what it for? A strategic shortcut. So this guy might be a hack, but that person has ads that are running. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook. They're on everything that you can possibly see. And you're sitting there with all your credentials and all your acumen, but no one's ever heard of you. They've never seen your face. They don't know who you are. And if they Google you, which is how 90% of people do their searches and they do their research, nothing comes up. But when you own your page, people go, this person's actually been doing things. That adds the credibility, that adds the authority. And believe it or not, CEOs have to do it as well. Because if you're planning to leave that company, you're going to have to start building your own personal brand yourself because you're not going to have the Felicias of the world to help you. You're not going to have your communications team. I was in communications. I was in the PR firms and the marketing agencies. You're not going to have any of that. You're going to start fresh. And when you start fresh and say, oh, I'm now into sustainability, you know what everybody's going to say? Since when? So when you announce something new, don't make announcements, make pronouncements. Be working on it behind the scenes. Join the organizations, get the certifications, be in rooms, do the networking, make yourself available, offer your services for free. Go make a difference and build personally, quietly, silently build part of your branding and then announce to people you're interested in sustainability. And now when I Google you, there it goes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's part of the coaching. So I'm not just a coach that's helping them figure stuff out mentally for themselves. I'm helping them be a better coach. They're coaches as well. It helps them guide and build better teams. And they understand that professional development is ongoing for everyone. That should be part of your legacy. So when you're gone, they can say, hey, you know what? We never had professional development before this person came. That's something that you want to be able to leave behind. Or they never talked about sustainability before I came. So when you want to the next thing, you can look back and be proud of your own work and realize you're actually building your personal brand, but you're also building your own personal legacy.
Cool. Amazing. And so if we could leave a final advice, and this is going to be for coaches now, for trying to scale their impact, what would that advice be with the last 5 minutes that we have?
Well, I think to scale your impact, to do more group coaching or speaking to groups of people, if you don't have the actual clientele, to impact a group of people because they come away with, you're going to inspire more people to make the investment in themselves, to take things more seriously and to invest in that strategic shortcut and start working with someone productively on how they can be better. Better is not necessarily bigger. It's better defined. How do you define better? How do you define that key performance indicator for yourself? And knowing that your brand, I think that's the best way is that if you start speaking in locations where you can go speak at a chamber of commerce, you can actually give maybe a free session to a company that's doing professional development to show them how you can turn something around, something that's simple to you, but is more complex to someone else. And I think that up to this point, people thought coaching was only for CEOs. And we have to get rid of that. There are people that are just going through personal issues and problems that are better suited if they have a coach because they have a business. They run a pizza place and they have a chain of 6. They need an actual coach because they have a family in a business. They have a family inside their business and they're actually looking to make a difference within the community. That sounds like a leader to me. So your football coach that's to expand what they're doing. Investing in coaching is, if you hear other athletes really believe in coaching. So I think we're to the point and we're turning the corner that other coaches have to start letting them know that what you bring to the table could be instrumental in helping uplift their communities, their businesses, and, their personal lives. And having an integrated lifestyle that's more work-life balance, bringing that to the table is very attractive to a lot of people because people struggle with that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming into our podcast today. For anyone who wants to connect with you or find you, they can look you up on LinkedIn as well, or in Google, just like you said, Felecia, or they'll be able to find your profile. And let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to share, but I really appreciate the time we had today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoy your show.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.